The story begins with an emergency broadcast going out across the entire world. Newscasters announce in panic that sick people are suddenly rising from the dead due to a mysterious virus, and they're attacking others, spreading the infection like wildfire. Governments are powerless to contain it, and citizens are told to protect themselves at all costs. The scene then shifts to just a few days before the outbreak. In a high-security prison, a man named John is serving his sentence. Once a decorated soldier in the army, John was known as the most skilled and dangerous fighter in his unit. But during a mission, he accidentally killed a civilian. For that mistake, he was dishonorably discharged and sentenced to 5 years in prison. Now, with only 1 month left before his release, John is quietly counting down the days. In prison, he has befriended another inmate named Tim, who often keeps him company. The prison warden calls John into his office and reminds him that he'll soon be free, able to reunite with his wife and daughter. But the warden warns him, if John causes trouble or gets caught up in prison fights, his release could be delayed. John, determined not to risk his freedom, tries to keep his head down. Outside the prison walls, his wife Sophia struggles to make ends meet while raising their young daughter Emma, who was born deaf and mute. Since John's imprisonment, Sophia has been working long shifts as a nurse in a local hospital. Their financial struggles force them to live in a rundown housing complex owned by a corrupt police officer in a neighborhood filled with addicts and criminals. During a phone call, Sophia tells John how difficult life has been without him, but she's hopeful things will change once he's back. John reassures her, promising he'll come home soon. After hanging up, little Emma signs to her mother, asking when her father will return from his mission. Sophia, hiding the truth, has always told Emma that her dad is away on a secret mission instead of in prison. This motivates John to start learning sign language behind bars. He wants to be able to truly communicate with his daughter once he's free. But trouble finds him anyway. A prison gang learns about John's upcoming release and pressures him to smuggle drugs for them once he's out. John refuses, wanting nothing to do with crime anymore. Enraged, the gang attacks him with knives. But John's soldier instincts kick in. He fights back, taking them down with brutal precision. Although he survives, the prison rules are clear. Because he engaged in the fight, he's punished with 2 days in solitary confinement, and now his release date may be pushed back another 2 months. Meanwhile, outside in Sophia's neighborhood, strange things begin happening. One of the local addicts staggers home, looking pale and deathly ill. Neighbors rush to check on him, only to realize he's no longer human. His eyes are lifeless, his skin gray, his teeth gnashing. Within seconds, he attacks, tearing into the people around him. The zombie virus has already begun to spread, and Sophia, Emma, and countless others have no idea that their world is about to collapse in just a matter of days. Everything was falling apart. Later that night, Sophia received a frantic phone call from one of her fellow nurses, desperately trying to warn her about the zombie outbreak. But with the signals cutting in and out, Sophia couldn't make sense of her words. Suddenly, she heard screaming outside her building. When she rushed to the window, she saw a zombie tearing into someone at the end of the street. Then its dead eyes locked onto her. The creature roared and began staggering toward her. Heart pounding, Sophia grabbed the nearest thing she could find, a broken iron rod. As the zombie lunged, she shoved it through its chest, forcing it to the ground, and with one final push, killed it. When she stepped outside, her blood ran cold. The entire housing complex had erupted into chaos. Neighbors were turning into zombies, attacking each other, and blood-curdling screams echoed through the narrow streets. Sophia grabbed Emma and fought her way through the madness, killing another zombie before escaping with the fleeing crowd. At the same time, alarms blared inside the prison. The infection had reached the guards. Some had already turned into zombies, attacking inmates in their cells. The warden had no choice. He ordered the gates opened, releasing the prisoners in a desperate attempt to survive. But it was too late. The outbreak spread inside as well, turning both guards and convicts into monsters. John, with his combat training, immediately stepped in to save his friend Tim from being bitten. Unlike the others, he knew how to fight smart, stay alert, keep moving, and never let zombie get close. Using brute force and precision, he cut through the undead, leading Tim and the remaining survivors toward the gates. But his mind was somewhere else. Sophia and Emma. Were they still alive? John and Tim managed to escape, hijacking a van and speeding toward the city. On the radio, they caught a chilling update from emergency broadcasts. Doctors had discovered one weakness in the zombies. They couldn't detect humans who stayed completely silent. Any noise, however small, would draw them instantly. Driving through the city, John saw devastation everywhere. Streets overrun, cars burning, and hordes of zombies roaming freely. Meanwhile, back at the housing complex, panic had spread. Connor, the corrupt cop who owned the building, was in despair. His only son hadn't returned home, and now terrified survivors were banging on his door, begging for shelter as the dead closed in. When John finally reached the complex, he saw the main road was blocked. With no choice, he and Tim broke into the back entrance. Moving in silence, they found most of the residents already turned. Carefully, they crept forward until they discovered Connor's son, hiding inside a bathtub, trembling as zombies swarmed outside. John signaled for him to come quietly. The boy moved, but in his panic, he made a small noise. In an instant, the horde turned, charging at them with inhuman speed. John grabbed his axe, ordering Tim and the boy to run while he held the line. With brutal strikes, he cut the creatures down one by one, blood spraying across the walls. After an exhausting fight, the three of them finally made it to Sophia's building. They slammed the door shut behind them, barricading it with furniture. But when John stepped inside, his heart sank. The apartment was empty. On the floor, he saw blood smeared across the tiles. Too much blood. Terrified, he froze, praying it didn't belong to Sophia or Emma. John and Tim managed to escape, hijacking a van and speeding toward the city. On the radio, they caught a chilling update from emergency broadcasts. Doctors had discovered one weakness in the zombies. They couldn't detect humans who stayed completely silent. Any noise, however small, would draw them instantly. Driving through the city, John saw devastation everywhere. Streets overrun, cars burning, and hordes of zombies roaming freely. Meanwhile, back at the housing complex, panic had spread. Connor, the corrupt cop who owned the building, was in despair. His only son hadn't returned home, and now terrified survivors were banging on his door, begging for shelter as the dead closed in. When John finally reached the complex, he saw the main road was blocked. With no choice, he and Tim broke into the back entrance. Moving in silence, they found most of the residents already turned. Carefully, they crept forward until they discovered Connor's son, hiding inside a bathtub, trembling as zombies swarmed outside. John signaled for him to come quietly. The boy moved, but in his panic, he made a small noise. In an instant, the horde turned, charging at them with inhuman speed. John grabbed his axe, ordering Tim and the boy to run while he held the line. With brutal strikes, he cut the creatures down one by one, blood spraying across the walls. After an exhausting fight, the three of them finally made it to Sophia's building. They slammed the door shut behind them, barricading it with furniture. But when John stepped inside, his heart sank. The apartment was empty. On the floor, he saw blood smeared across the tiles. Too much blood. Terrified, he froze, praying it didn't belong to Sophia or Emma. Meanwhile, Sophia was wandering through the dark hallways, desperately searching for Emma. In the chaos, when she tried to escape with her daughter, the massive crowd had separated them. Sophia had no idea that Emma had already made it to the housing complex owner's house with the other survivors, and was safe for now. At the same time, John continued moving forward with Tim and Connor's son, determined to find his family. Suddenly, the boy spotted his mother. His eyes lit up, but what he didn't know was that she was no longer human. She had already turned into a zombie. Just as he ran toward her, Tim grabbed him and pulled him back before she could sink her teeth into him. The boy broke down, sobbing at the sight of his zombified mother, but Tim quickly covered his mouth to silence him. One scream, and the horde outside would come crashing in. A little further ahead, John finally found Sophia hiding inside a room. Relief washed over him. she was alive. Though injured from a fall, she reassured him she was fine. But with tears in her eyes, she confessed that Emma had been lost in the chaos and begged him to find her. John held her close, promising that now that he was back, nothing would happen to her or Emma. But outside the room, the sound of shuffling feet and guttural growls grew louder. The zombies were gathering at their door. Tim knew they couldn't just wait inside. With Emma still out there, they had to move. Without hesitation, Tim made a choice. He told John he would draw the zombies away, giving them a chance to escape. Before John could stop him, Tim burst out the door, yelling at the top of his lungs. The undead turned instantly, swarming after him. The path was clear. John, Sophia, and the boys slipped out, running down the hallway. But Tim's luck ran out. Cornered with nowhere left to run, he fought bravely, cutting down as many zombies as he could. But their numbers were overwhelming. Screams filled the corridor as the creatures dragged him down, biting into his flesh. Tim had sacrificed himself so his friend could live and find his daughter. John, Sophia, and the boy kept running, though some zombies still chased after them. Luckily, they soon learned that the remaining survivors had all gathered inside the complex owner's house. With no time to lose, they raced toward it and forced their way inside. There, Connor, finally reunited with his son, broke down in tears of relief. He thanked John for saving the boy's life. But for John and Sophia, the real moment of salvation came when they saw Emma. Safe, alive. John dropped to his knees, tears streaming down his face as he hugged his daughter tightly. After years of being apart, he whispered that his mission was over and he would never leave her again. As the survivors settled inside, Connor, whose real name was Sam, asked the question everyone was thinking: what's happening out there? Will the government send rescue? John's expression hardened. He told them what he'd heard over the radio, that the government was losing the fight. Entire cities had fallen. No rescue was coming anytime soon. To make matters worse, Sophia was injured, and he insisted she needed medical care soon. The others looked at one another grimly. Their food and water supplies inside the house wouldn't last long either. The reality was setting in. Survival meant making a choice: hide and hope, or fight their way out. The survivors knew they couldn't stay locked inside forever. If they did, hunger and thirst would kill them before the zombies ever could. That's when one man revealed something he had kept secret. His older brother was in the police force, and according to him, the southern part of the city had been sealed off and turned into a safe zone for survivors. Food, water, and protection awaited them there. Hearing this, the group agreed. They would spend the night here, then at sunrise, make their way to the safe camp. But the fragile hope didn't last. Soon after, Sam, the building's owner, noticed something horrifying. His son, the one John had rescued, had a bite mark on his leg. When he had tried to approach his mother earlier, she had bitten him. Sam tried desperately to hide it from the others, knowing they would kill his boy if they found out. But when his son lost control and lunged at Sophia, the truth was revealed. John reacted instantly, shooting the boy in the head to save his wife. Sam watched his son die in front of him, and grief turned to madness. As if to add salt to the wound, one terrified woman fired another shot into the boy's body, making sure he wouldn't rise again. Sam snapped. Enraged, he attacked her, then turned on the other survivors. Chaos erupted. The safe house collapsed into violence as both zombies and Sam tore into the panicked survivors. John rushed to protect Sophia and Emma, forcing their way outside as one by one, the others were slaughtered. Knowing the undead outnumbered them, John made a desperate plan. He shouted, drawing the zombies toward himself so that Sophia and Emma could slip away. Swinging his weapon with brutal strength, he cut them down one after another. But while he fought, Sam reappeared, consumed by revenge. He blamed John for his son's death. Finding Sophia and Emma alone, he tried to kill Emma in cold blood. Sophia, however, fought back with every ounce of strength she had left. She told Emma to hide, then wrestled Sam for his gun. In the brutal struggle, Sophia finally turned the weapon on him, shooting him dead. Emma, terrified, had crawled into a narrow hiding place. When John finally returned, he spotted her, but she refused to come out, trembling with fear. He crouched down and began signing to her in the language he had learned just for her. "You're safe. Daddy's here. I won't let anything happen to you." Slowly, Emma stepped out and threw her arms around him. Just then, another zombie attacked, but Sophia appeared from behind, firing a clean shot into its skull. Together again, the three of them ran through the burning ruins of the housing complex toward the main gate. At the edge of the compound, John pointed to a van he had parked nearby. He told Sophia to take Emma and drive straight to the safe zone. "Don't stop for anyone. If a zombie gets in your way, run it over." Sophia froze, realizing what he meant. "Why aren't you coming with us?" she demanded. John finally revealed the truth. During the earlier battle, while protecting them, he had been bitten. He was already doomed. He explained that everything he had done, the fighting, the planning, the sacrifice, was only to make sure they made it out alive. For 5 long years, John had waited for the moment to see his family again. And now, fate had given him only a single day before taking it away. But he had fulfilled his mission. He had saved his wife and daughter. Holding Emma one last time, he signed to her with trembling hands, "Daddy has to go on another mission now. But you'll be safe." Tears ran down Sophia's face. She knew this mission was one he would never return from. After saying goodbye, John escorted them safely to the van, watching as they drove off toward the safe camp. Then he turned back, walking alone into the building where the dead roamed. He was ready to face his fate. Maybe this had always been his purpose, not to survive, but to make sure the 2 people he loved most did. And with that heartbreaking ending, the story closes. So, how did you like this movie? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more underrated zombie movies like this one. Thank you.